Hello, hello. We are live. Looks like James is there, which is very cool. Good to see you there, James. We're going to start in 1 minute. If anybody else is in the chat and wants to say hi, go for it. I'm drinking my Starbucks. All right, let me just do one more check. Make sure everything's looking good. And then we'll start. All right, I think we're good. Here we go. Welcome to the Doll Junkie Masterclass Week 1. There we go with the mic. So happy to have you guys here. Thanks for buying the course. You're going to get tons out of it. And if you're here live, you can ask me questions in real time. So in this first week, what we're basically going to go over, is the basics, the basics of the recording software we're going to use, and then we're going to get into some basic ways to use it. It's a very basic week. But I will get into more advanced stuff. If you're in the chat and you have a question, hit me up. First thing I want to do is just go over to my screen here, and we're going to start. Well, let me just show you this. Some of you guys might not have installed the software yet. Presonus.com has the stuff we need, the goods. What we basically use to make our music, I'll stop saying basically now, I'm sorry, is software. It's called Studio One. And if you go under products under Studio One, this is what we want. This is the program we're going to be using. It's a digital audio workstation, which basically is why my website is called Doll Junkie, because a digital audio workstation is DAW, digital audio workstation, DAW. You're going to hear that a lot in this industry if you don't know that already. And a DAW basically allows you to make music on your computer, using your computer, record into your computer. It's the computer recorder instead of using a tape machine. And, you know, if you've been in music for a while, DAWs are amazing because they do all these things that tape machines can do, plus 7 billion more things. So your music making options are endless now with computers and software. And there's so many good add-ons you could put into a DAW to make it sound like a tape. If you're old school and you miss that analog tape sounding stuff, they're trying to replicate that now with software, and you could do some of that in Studio One too. Actually, you can do a lot of it in Studio One, but built in, there's even some cool stuff. You don't have to buy anything extra. So if you haven't done it already, hit try now under Studio One and create an account. You're going to get a 30-day demo of Studio One Professional, and once that ends, Studio One it's not a free program, but I like using it because it works on PC and Mac, and it has a great subscription service. This is only like $15 a month, which is Presonus Sphere here. This is their subscription service, where you get the software, and then they just give you everything else basically that they make software-wise for $14.95 a month. So if you're serious about doing this kind of thing, at least buy 1 month. Once your trial runs out, buy 1 month. It's $15. It's like 3 of these, you know? And I think it's a very affordable, good way to do it. And you might be like, Steve, why don't you use free software? Well, there is a free version of Studio One called Studio One Prime. You can get it if you go to my website. If you go to dolljunkie.com/S1 for Studio One, you can get the Studio One Prime, but it's It's the older version. They don't have a new version of Studio One Prime yet. But it is a free version of Studio One that you can absolutely use. And you can click the download for Mac or PC if you go to doljunkie.com/S1. So I recommend for the Masterclass, because we're going to be digging into all kinds of stuff that Studio One Prime doesn't have, that you get the professional version and then run it for 30 days and decide then what you want to do. You could buy Sphere or you could buy the program outright. Okay. I use Sphere, by the way. So once you hit try now and you sign up for your account here, they're going to get a download file. So you get the demo, and then it's just like any other program. It gives a downloadable file. You click on it, you open it, you run the installer. You know, I'm not going to go over all that in this. It is covered in the Make Hit Music course, and how anyone can make hit music course if you do need help with it. Or you could just go to my help desk and shoot me an email, and I'll send you a video or something. So I'm going to assume now that we have the program installed. And here it is up here, Studio One 6. So I'm going to double click it. And if you attach a bunch of stuff to it like I do, it takes a little while to load, but we'll get there. All right, cool. And then once you're at this screen, like your dashboard screen here, just go up to New. And even for this screen, just leave all the default settings. Don't worry about anything and just hit OK. And it'll bring you to this blank slate of a screen. Now, I want to tell you, just flat out, that this program is very complicated. All DAWs really are pretty complicated. That's a good thing. Number one, don't worry about it, because we're not going to be using, we're probably not going to use 90% of the features. Number two, it's good that it's complicated, because now you can grow into this program and you have 90% of the features there that are waiting for you to use when you're up to that point. But you don't need to be at that level to start. And I like using a professional level software rather than using maybe an easy like GarageBand-y type software to start off, because you could buy, once you buy the program, you could grow into it. Whereas you could grow out of GarageBand, and then you'd have to buy like Logic from Apple or even Studio One for Apple if you want. So that's why when you open up this screen and you see all these pictures and icons and graphs and numbers and dials and options, don't worry about any of it. You know, it overwhelms everybody the first time. It's not odd to feel a little overwhelmed and intimidated. Just follow what I say and we'll get through this. And you'll like it. You'll like it. Okay. So what we have here is a blank slate. And it's basically called, well, up here where these numbers are, that's your timeline. Okay, that's called the timeline. And just like a tape machine, it has play and stop, these programs. If you hit the space bar, you'll see the white line move across the screen. And then you hit the space bar again, that's stop. So your space bar is play and stop, like a tape machine. So that's lesson number one. You can click anywhere up here in this timeline to go to that place in the timeline, to move to that spot. And then if you hit the space bar now, it's going to play from where you put the line. And you might be asking now, well, what does the line do? There's nothing in there to play. Well, we're going to drop some stuff in there that will play. If you go to, should we do loops or files? Well, okay, if you installed Studio One properly and you're going to see this screen when you install Studio One, and it's going to ask you if you want to install all this extra content. Absolutely say yes. Install all of it, okay? Install all of it because we're going to be using some files from it. It might be like lots and lots of gigabytes, but it's awesome because now you have lots and lots of instruments and sounds you could use in your music. You really probably don't need anything else ever if you download all the content, technically. So do like the recommended or full installation and grab all the content and install it. You will get that option when you first boot up in Studio One for the first time. You'll get this screen. If you don't, for whatever reason, and you don't have any content loaded, you need to get it. So you have to go up here to Studio One and under Installation, and that's where you get all this content. So click the boxes, install the items. Everybody will be happy. And once you do that, and you go over to Files now over here, under Sound Sets, you're going to see all the stuff. These are all the sounds that you get with Studio One. Tons and tons and tons of stuff. What we're going to be doing is just opening up one of these. Which one did we do for the demo? Sample Magic? Okay. Scroll down to Sample Magic, Loops and Kits. Open that up. Is that the one? No, that's not it. Scratch that. You can do that, but do what I'm saying for this. Go to Prime Selection Loops and Sounds. It'll be it's more of a basic introduction to what's going on. And just know that under Files and under Sound Sets, you have just tons and tons of stuff that you can use in your music. We're going to be using audio files that are already pre-made, like already created, pre-recorded, and we're going to drop them into our project. So open up Prime Selections, Loops and Sounds, go to Big Fish Audio, and open up, let's do folk for this one. I think I did pop last time. Open up folk. You don't have to be into folk music, but we're just using this as an example. What we have now in here, if you read these, are audio files of guitars and banjos and bass and drums. So just click on drums 1 or double click on it and it'll start playing. So that's just a bass drum. Try drums 2. And you could go through all the files and just click them and they'll start playing. Now, these sound great, don't they? They're professionally recorded, and the cool thing is you can use these in your songs. What this collection of files are called in this industry is called a construction kit, because you can construct your song out of the files in this kit. So under just the folder folk here, you have all these audio files that if you put them all together, they'd actually make a full song. And that's what we're going to do in this training. All right, the first thing we want to do is just make one adjustment before we do anything else. You see where it says 138 here? A lot of these folders will have numbers next to them. That stands for tempo. That's how fast the song plays and those audio files play. Now, audio files are cool because you can stretch them and shrink them, and you can make them play fast and slow, however you want. You could really mangle them if you want and make them sound however you want. And I encourage people to mangle audio and reverse it and switch it around and do all kinds of cool stuff in their music just to experiment and see what you got going on. But for this example, it'll be a great way for me to show you tempo before we start anything else, because you want to have your tempo of your song set properly before you start recording stuff. And that's done down here where it says tempo. If you look down there, you see that it's set for 120. So we want to just set ours at 138 because that's the speed that these files in this construction kit were recorded at. And now I want you to take drums 1. Click on it and drag it into your timeline. Drag it all the way to the beginning where it says 1 and drop it. Now, if you don't if you didn't take it all the way to 1, say you accidentally dropped it like right there, you could just drag it over. Just grab it and move it over with your mouse and make it start at 1. And now let's take our playhead, remember this white line, and click up here at 1 so it starts at the beginning, and hit the space bar. And it's playing it. And that's the whole file. Now, you saw that the file's kind of long, and it went off, the playhead went off the edge of the screen to play the end of it. Well, the neat thing about Studio One is it's very easy to zoom in and out on your project and get really fine details. And I'm doing that by hovering my mouse up here where the numbers are. Click your mouse button, your left mouse button, and drag either down or up while your button's held. If you drag down, that zooms in. If you drag up, it zooms out. So you can get really fine-tuned into the project and make minute changes and stuff like that and see the whole thing. That's how there's different ways to zoom in and out and stuff in these programs, but this is my favorite way because it's so easy. Because if you zoom in, so I'm going to pull down and zoom really in tight. If you move left and right now, it moves left and right as well as up and down. So you could zoom in and out, or you could just move left and right, all while your mouse button's held. Like my mouse button's held this whole time. So if I wanted to really zoom in on something, I could do that. And if I wanted to go a little bit to the right, and move it to the right. And you could basically just surgically navigate through your project. So zoom in and out by going up to the timeline, holding your left mouse button down, move up and down. That's how you zoom in and out. We're going to be doing that a lot. So go ahead and practice that and see if you could do that. And we want to play that file again, but the timeline's all the way over here. Not the timeline, the playhead. That's what this white bar is called. This white line's called. I can't remember if I told you that before. The playhead's all the way over here. So what we want to do is bring the playhead back to 1. So you click at 1 on the timeline. Now you can imagine that's going to get old. Every time you want to start the song at the beginning, you got to zoom out and click 1. So you don't have to do that every time. We're going to get good at using keyboard shortcuts to get a lot of stuff done in our program. And the keyboard shortcut you use to get to the beginning of the song is the comma key on your keyboard. So click the comma key, and you might be saying, well, that's a weird key. Well, how can I remember that to get to the beginning of the song? Because honestly, it's what's above the comma key that makes sense. It's a left arrow that points, or a left bracket that points all the way back to the beginning of the song. So that's really why it's that key. Click that takes you all the way to the beginning of the song. Now, if you hit the space bar again, it'll play again. Okay, we're moving along now. We have a song. There's our song so far. Now, say we want to add bass to our song. Well, we picked drums 1 over here. So let's listen to bass 1, because bass 1 probably fits with drums 1. Let's just play it. All right, interesting. So let's drag that over and drag it right under the first one. And now we have what's called a track. These sections here on your project are called tracks now. Like the drums are on track 1, and when we brought the bass over and put it under it, the bass is on track 2. So now let's hit the comma key on our keyboard to go to the beginning of the song and hit the space bar, and let's listen. Cool. All right, let's take the banjo now. Do the same thing. Sounds good. All right, let's do acoustic picking guitar 1. Let's put it there. All right, now how about this acoustic guitar 1? Hey, let's take that and drag it over. Pretty basic stuff, right? So, but pretty neat, because now we actually have a full song. And I mean, it's only a couple seconds long. It's only like, I don't know, 20 seconds. So let me show you a way to extend these tracks out longer if you want to make your song longer. If you use the arrow, and when you move your mouse around, it's an arrow on your canvas here. Whatever file you click on, it puts a little border around it. That means it's selected. So if you click on the drums and you want to duplicate that, if you hit the D key on your keyboard, that stands for duplicate. It'll just put another one right next to it. So go ahead and try that. Select that drum track and hit D and make one next to it. And then go to bass, you hit D, you do the same thing. Banjo, same thing. Guitar, same thing. Same thing. That's how you make tracks longer. You can also do the good old-fashioned cut or copy and paste. If you hit Control-C or Command-C while one of these files is selected, I just hit Control-C to copy, and wherever I put the playhead now, and I hit Control-V, it pastes it there now. And if it's in the wrong spot, you can just move it with your mouse. And that's how you do it. Now, you guys might not have this set up like me, so I'm going to turn this on because this is probably how you guys have it set. Okay, yeah. See, when I'm in the bottom half of the file now, it's an arrow. When I'm on the top half, it's a little cross. So everything I just did, make sure it's an arrow when you're doing that. Arrow, select it to D, 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 D. Now, a cool thing you can do to save time is select all of them at once. If I hold the mouse down anywhere on my canvas here and I make this box, anything that box touches when I let go of the mouse will now be selected. So if I have all those selected and I hit D, it duplicates them. Cool stuff? All right, and then you could also delete them. If these are all selected now and I hit the delete key, they go away. Pretty simple stuff, right? Okay. Just make sure it's at the arrow. We're going to go over the cross later. Cross is cool, but arrow is what we're using right now. Now, when I was dragging all these over, these files, this acoustic guitar, this picking one, was a little too loud for me. So just know that in all of these tracks, this line over here is actually volume, a volume slider. And I could hold my mouse and move it up and down, and that adjusts the volume of the track. See, there's no picking guitar right now, but if I raise the volume, you'll hear it. And say you think the drums are too loud. Same thing. Change the volume. If you want to put them back to 0, you just hold the control button down and click on the mouse and you'll bring them back to 0. So that's how you adjust volume of all your tracks. Because right now we have a 5-track song. And you want to be able to adjust the volumes that sound pleasant to your, so each instrument sounds pleasant to your ears and one of them's not overpowering another one. That's basically how you do that. So in this construction kit now, let's take a look. We were all using files that started with 1, drums 1, bass 1, banjo 1, guitar 1. Well, let's listen to what 2 is. It's probably a variation of 1. Let's hear this one. Yeah, that's cool. Try. Neat. All right, so let's just take acoustic guitar 2. Oops. Okay, here's folk acoustic guitar 1. So let's take acoustic guitar 2 and just put it right next to it. And then what do we got here? Acoustic picking. Let's take picking guitar 2 and put that there. And then banjo 1. Let's put banjo 2 here. And then bass 2 here. And then drums 2 here. And let's play it and let's see what happens when it gets to this part. It's probably going to make a drastic change. Okay, that's interesting. And then we have another one here called end. So let's just double click that and see what that is. Okay, that's just a 1-note hit. All right, so let's put that at the end of our song. So let's take drums end and put it at the end of the drums. And let's take bass end, put it at the end of the bass. And banjo end, put it here. And let's just hear how it sounds when the song gets to the end. All right. You have your first song. That is how you make a song without actually playing any instruments into the software. If you're not a musician and you just want to use pre-made what's called loops, these things are called loops here over on the right, these files, because that's, you see how they all end with the word audio loop? They're called loops because you can literally like spin them so they, when they get to the end of them, they start playing over again and it sounds seamless. So they're basically called loops. So you can just use loops and make music, and that's completely legit. If you don't want to play a piano or anything like that, or you don't want to play guitar, you don't want to sing, you can just buy packs full of loops and make complete songs just with loops. So that's basically what we just did now. It's very basic, but it's cool. And it's a great way to get started learning this stuff. So, that's one construction kit that we used. Let's try a different one. Let's go back into Big Fish Audio and not go to folk. Let's go to funk, soul. And let's do a new song. So go up to... Wait, before we do that, we want to save. If we want to save what we got, go to File, Save, and it will save the song. All right, now we're going to go to File, New, hit OK. And now let's check out Funk Soul. Now, Funk Soul is at 130. So let's change the tempo to 130. And let's pull in drums A1, put that on track 1. And then we'll do guitar solo 1. That probably will fit with 1. Hammond solo 1. And bass. How about bass all? Let's try that. And let's just hear how it sounds all together. All right, you see the bass loop is not as long as the other one. So just duplicate it and it will be. All right. And then we got drums end here, so let's put that at the end of the drums, or at the end of the drum sounds there. Let's make sure we can see this. Drums, yeah. Okay, and then lead end. Organ end. And bass end. This should be a good ending. We'll see. Perfect. Pretty neat. So that's how you use construction kits in Studio One. You could buy all kinds of different packs of these things, and they come with all these pre-made files that you can just put together however you want. And the cool thing about it is it's like playing with blocks. Like, say I don't want to have any bass in the beginning of the song. I just click that block and delete it, and now there's no bass. Say I don't want any organ. I could delete the organ. Now, because these are audio files, you don't have to just play the whole thing. You see how long this block is? It goes from like here to here. That's not written in stone. This is all software, so all this stuff can be just completely manipulated. Like what I'm trying to say basically is, say I just like the beginning of this organ, and I don't like the rest of it. I can grab one side of this loop and just drag it to the left so that just that first part is playing and none of the rest of it. And say I like it so much, I just want this first part to keep playing over and over and over. Well, I just shortened it, so if I hit D now, I could duplicate it, and it'll just play that first part over and over again. Okay, that's where the bass came in right there. So I think that was cool. There's no bass in the beginning. There's just guitar, drums, and organ. But say I want to make a pause in the drums right before this bass comes in, just to build a little bit of tension. Okay, that's where this cross comes in. This cross is called a range tool, because if I have it, and it only appears when it's on the top half of any audio loop. If it's on the bottom half, it turns into an arrow. But if it's on the top half, it's a cross. Now, if I just selected it and clicked my button when it's an arrow, that means I can move this loop. But when it's a cross, I can actually draw a range if I hold the mouse button and drag it. And that range is just a highlighted section that is basically saying, well, what do you want to do now between 4 and 5? You just highlighted it. What do you want to do with it? Well, if I hit delete, it just deletes that part. So if I play from the beginning, pretty neat, huh? So we built a little bit of tension, the drums stopped, and then the bass comes in with all the other instruments. It's pretty cool. So that's what the range tool does. It allows you to pick a range of anything. It could be even multiple tracks, and hit delete and get rid of it. So we have a song now. Doesn't start with the bass, the drums stop around here, so we're kind of like tailoring it to our own tastes. That's one cool thing about using loops. Somebody might say, like, look, you're cheating. You're not really writing music. You're just using loops and files that somebody else recorded, and you're making your song out of that. Well, number one, I've heard like top hit pop songs used with loops that I've found in different programs. So professionals use loops, and I've seen it, and I do it. Not all the time, but they do as part of their artistic palette. You know, you're a musician. You could play stuff in. You can use loops. You can use different things and mix it all together. It doesn't matter. There's no rules. This is music. So that's what some people do. And then I think there was a number 2 I was going to say, but I forget. All right, but let me show you some other features of the program here to just get a little more help so you can make more music. Okay, these are all tracks. I told you that. Each one of these things. Well, you can, like, let's say we just want to hear the bass in our song. We don't want to hear any of the other instruments because say we want to do something to the bass, like we want to change it or we just want to hear it, and we don't want the other instruments to play. You don't have to go turn down the volume of all the other instruments or delete all the other files of the other instruments to hear the bass only. There's some cool tools in these digital audio workstations, these DAWs. And one of them that all of them have is this S over here. If you look at this S, that stands for solo. And if you click it, it turns yellow. And now when you play your song, it just plays the one with the S, because that stands for solo. It's soloing that track. And you could do that on any track. Like if I hit S again, it turns it off. And then I go up to the drums, I could just solo the drums. Cool? Well, then you might be able to figure out on your own what these M's mean. M stands for mute. And if you mute a track, that means it doesn't play. So if I just mute the organ, no organ's playing. Now it is. Now it's not. So if you just want to pull one thing out of your song, you could mute it. If I mute the drums, no drums are playing. Now there. So those are just helpful things you could do to, in your song making, tools you can use to help you build your song easier. Mute and solo. Say you want to take a closer look at this bass file here, because these little black marks here are the waveform of the bass. You could actually see what the bass is playing from this waveform. You could zoom in on that by just dragging down on any track and making that track bigger, and then maybe zooming in. You could really see what's going on with each track. So if I start here, I can see all the notes the bass is playing. I'm soloing it now. And so you could do that for any track. You could just make it bigger or smaller. You can make it super tiny. Look how small you can make them. And that's just another way to help you navigate your song better. A great way to do all the tracks at once is to pull up and down here. See where I am at down here? You pull this little line here, and it just increases or decreases the size of all the tracks at once. Cool, right? All right, so we have a song. We did a little bit of editing on it, edited the audio files, and made some changes. Now, let's look up here to some of these other basic tools we have that we can use in making our song. I'm probably just going to use these next two, because this arrow is the arrow tool that we already know how to use. It just drags things around. These boxes here, that's the range tool. That's what happens when you go on the top side of the top half of an audio loop, turns into a cross. This little bracket over here, I'm going to click it, is kind of new to the program. When it's off, if you have the arrow tool selected, then it doesn't turn into a cross when you go on the top half of a track. It stays as an arrow no matter what you do. It's a complete arrow. That's the way I used to operate. I think that's why it was on when we started the program. They didn't have that other option before. And if I wanted to go into the range tool, I'd have to come up here and click it. And now, see, it turns into a cross, and it's a range tool. So it's kind of nifty to turn this on. It combines the two together. So when it's on the bottom half of a track, it's an arrow. When it's on the top half of a track, it's a range. So I think it's pretty handy. So I would keep that on. And just know that your number keys on your keyboard, not on the numeric keypad, but on the keyboard, on the top of all the letter keys, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., they coordinate? No, what's the word? Oh, man, my coffee's wearing off. Correlate? Well, let's just say this. The arrow, if you press 1 on your keyboard, it turns on the arrow key. If you press 2 on your keyboard, it does the range tool. If you press 3 on your keyboard, it does this knife. If you hit 4, it does this eraser tool. So you can navigate 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1 on your keyboard, and that's a quick way. And I've done that when I'm editing podcasts. It's a quick way to go between your tools. Like, say I just want this knife tool. Let's talk about the knife tool now. You could click that number 3. It takes you to the knife tool. Now, the knife tool just splits the tracks. It splits these loops into pieces. Like, say I just want I want to split the bass here and just take out that part right here in the middle. So I just hit the knife tool here, and I hit the knife tool here, and I clicked. And now if I hit 1 on my keyboard, it brings me back to this. I'm going to select that piece and delete it. And say I don't like this section here. I want to get that out. Well, you could just use the range tool and delete it. Or you could use the knife tool if you want. And I'm going to put the click here for the knife, 1 snip. I'm going to snip here. And I'm going to hit 1 to turn it back to an arrow. Select it and delete. So you have a knife if you want to chop things up. And I'm just chopping. Look at me chopping all over the place. You can chop things. It's just another tool in your toolbox to help you make a song. You could chop anything you want. I did too much chopping. Let me unchop. Control-Z undoes whatever you did. So if you're like chopping fool, see now my coffee's kicking in because I'm trying to be funny. You could hit Control-Z and undo what you did. And then there's the eraser key. One guess what the eraser tool. One guess what the eraser tool does. You got it. When you click on something, it erases it. Simple stuff. All right, Control-Z for those things. All right, pretty simple, right? So now you have a basic understanding of using audio loops, and you know the 4 main tools in Studio One that you can get to by just hitting the number keys on your keyboard. All right, let's see what else we can get into now. Let me just open a new project. Let's go to Prime Selections and Loops. And let's go to Big Fish Audio and go to Pop. And let's just take Pop drums. Where's the drums? In the chorus. I want you guys to know something cool about loops. Remember how I said this number up here is the tempo that these loops were recorded at? Well, you don't have to play them at that speed. Like, check it out. My song is in the tempo of 120. If I bring it down to 86, and then I check these drums out, they're going to play slow at 86. Check them out. Or if I want to play them super fast, So loops can be stretched throughout your project. I'll bring these drums in, and I'll bring it down, the tempo down to 160, and see the loop actually moves with the project. So if you like the way it sounds faster or slower, you can do that. Just know that they were originally recorded at whatever number is on top here. And you could also see that number, because some of them don't write it in the title of their folder. But you could always see it down here in this little inspector part here. See, it says 140 BPM. That's how fast you knew it was written. And think of all these files over here and this little player as it's a little preview player. It just shows you what these files sound like before you drag them into your project. So you can preview things by just hitting play or double clicking it, and it hits play. So you can see how it sounds before you drag it into your project. Another cool thing is you can preview it while the project is playing. So I'm going to hit play on my project, and then I'm going to double click. It'll play it while the drums are actually playing in the song. Now, remember how I told you these are loops, and then when you get to the end of one, it can repeat and sound pretty seamless? Well, check this out. I'm going to just shorten this to 2 measures. And a measure is the space between the numbers up here. So when I say 2 measures, that's from measure 1 to measure 2 to measure 3. 2 measures. Count it out. Sorry, I thought I heard my cat. She demands to play often, and I have to comply. Well, we can loop this drum track so when it gets to the end, it starts over again. How do you do that? Because this is very handy when you're just trying to like find sounds and do things in your project, and you want something to keep playing over and over, and you don't want to keep rewinding it, going back to the beginning. You could do that with this. This little line above all the numbers is where you set your loops, your loop region. It's called, I don't know what the line itself is called, but you see how your cursor turns into a pencil when you get on that line? When it turns into a pencil, you can then hold your mouse button down and drag, and it'll create a region, like a section, from one point to another point. And we want to go from 3 to 1. So I went from 3 to 1. I drew that section. I could draw one from 4 to 5. I could draw one anywhere up here. It doesn't even have to align with the numbers. But whatever you draw, wherever you draw that, everything under that should loop when it gets to the end. It'll go back to the beginning. So let's try it. Oops, it didn't loop. I kind of did that on purpose. Why didn't it loop, Steve? You said this is the loop region. Everything I draw, every time I draw that, everything under it should loop. Well, here's why. Because it's all fine and good to draw a loop region, but you actually have to activate that region before it actually loops. So if you go down to this loop button down here and click it, the region turns blue. Did you see that up at the top of the screen now? Every time I click the button, it turns blue. Blue means this region is activated. And now when it gets to the end, it'll go back to the beginning. And now while that's looping, I can test all kinds of stuff over here. How about the bass? Okay, I like that. So let me take that Rhodes, bring it over here. And why don't we duplicate this so it plays the whole length of that Rhodes loop. And then let's drag the loop region over while it's still activated so it plays both of them now. And let's try a bass now. All right, I like that, so let's drag that there and let's hear how that sounds. Pretty cool, right? So now you know how to loop things, and you know how to preview things that you might want to use in your track. Now, if you want to preview things and have them play at the same speed of your project, you have to make sure that this little triangle is selected here. If that's not selected, all these files are going to play at their original beats per minute. And that's what BPM stands for if you're curious, beats per minute. So it won't match up. Like, watch. Let me just mute these and just do the drums. And I want to preview the bass while the drums are playing. It's out of time. See? The guitar is playing slower than the drums. But if I click this, it puts it on time. So you want to have this off if you want to hear how the file sounds in its original state, not sped up or slowed down. You want to keep that off. But it's nice to have it on for the most time because you want all your stuff to play at the tempo of the project usually. So I keep it on. Now, one other thing I want to talk about is a little click track. You might have heard, like, if you're trying to play guitar into your program, which we're not going to cover today. We're going to cover playing those instruments in your software next time. If you hit this little triangle, that's called a metronome. So watch now when I hit play. It clicks so you can keep time. Like, say I wanted to sing into my song. I'm just going to do an example here. This is advanced. We're going to be covering this next week. But say I wanted to sing into my song and I didn't have any instruments playing. I have that click track now, so I could sing along with the click track. Watch. This is the click track. I'm singing to the click, so I know the beat of the song. It was terrible. But watch now. I could grab that file and put it into my song. Come on. And listen to it. This is the click track. I'm singing to the click, so I know the beat of the song. This is the click track. I'm singing to the click, so I know the beat of the song. It's pretty bad, right? But now that I have that file that I recorded, I could do all kinds of cool stuff with it. This is stuff we're going over next week, but I can't help myself. I'm going to play with it. Watch, I could just duplicate that. This. This is the click. I'm singing to the click. This. I'm singing to the click. Click. This. I'm singing to the click. To the click. This. Isn't that crazy? I'm singing to the click. To the click. So recording using audio and stuff, it gets really fun. We'll go over that next week because you're gonna need one of these little boxes to hook that up, and I'll show you how to use those next week. All right, so I think we covered a lot of stuff today to just basically get a feel for how to use the software. So make sure before next week you go ahead and you go in and you download all this content so you can use it and screw around with it. Otherwise, you're not going to have any fun stuff to play with, any fun toys to play with. And by the way, you do that again by going to Studio One installation, and look for the available downloads. It'll let you know which ones you don't have. Like if I go to installed content, it's showing everything I have installed, like all this stuff. But I didn't install these yet, so they're available. I should install them. So if I install 2 items, it'll install them. So get everything that you can, install it. And then last thing. Let me just delete everything. By the way, if you do want to delete a track, if you just highlight it over here and right click and say remove track, that's how you get rid of tracks too. I was going into files under sound sets to find all this stuff. A nice little tool that Studio One has is if it knows you're using loops, if you click the loops tab here, you can sort through your loops in all kinds of cool ways. Like this is being sorted by instrument. So we're basically telling Studio One, if you know it's drums, put it into this drum section. If you know it's a guitar, put it in this guitar section. So it takes everything from these sound sets, and if it can determine what it is, if it's a guitar or drums, it will actually put it into its proper folder over here. So if I click this, it's all kinds of drum sounds now that from all the downloaded content that I downloaded that I can use. It's just now in a neat little folder instead of me going into files and what company made that? Was it Sample Magic? What's this dirty electro house? Like what's in this folder? Loops allows you to just bypass all that. The reason I used loops is because I wanted to just use specific files in that construction kit. But look at this, construction kits. It even knows if there's a construction kit. Isn't that cool? Wow. That's the first time I saw that, to be honest. So that's neat. So you might want to hang out more in this tab than that tab. This is more of like a normal like Windows Explorer type browser or like Mac Finder on the Mac. It's very like, okay, you have a file structure. Here's all the files in that folder. Here's this folder. Here's this folder. But this tries to be smart about it, loops, and put them into the proper things that they're worded. Like if it knows it's a piano, it's going to put it in the piano folder. Say you don't want to sort by instrument though. Say you want to sort by the vendor who makes it. Well, you can do that. And now it sorts by all the company names. of all the companies that made these audio files. Because PreSonus didn't make all the audio files that come with Studio One. There's some third-party companies like MVP Loops, 9-Volt Audio. That's not PreSonus. So if you could sort by the vendor, maybe by character, acoustic, aggressive. So what's under aggressive? Probably EDM type stuff. Yeah. So EDM, bass stab. I would say that that's aggressive. How about acoustic, blues? Neat. Ooh, that's a cool sounding loop. Man, see, the juices are flowing for me now. I got the juices flowing. Once the juices flow, then you just have no limits. You could just come into here, grab stuff, use it however you want. So you could sort by character, instrument, type, vendor, product. And then you could kind of sort in subfolders too. That's the cool thing about loops. Say you want to sort by character. These are all character. And then you want to sort by vendor. So every folder you open now will be sorted by vendor underneath the original character folder. And then you could go one step further even and go by style. So now it's acoustic, so that's character. And then the vendor, MVP Loops. And then the style, EDM. So this loops section here is actually a great way to find what you want. If you just want acoustic stuff, then sort by character and make it acoustic. And these, you don't even have to have anything in there. You can just make them blank. Right? Okay, yeah, it let me do it. So you can get as granular as you want in that kind of stuff. All right, well, I think we did good today. I'm proud of you guys. I didn't see anything you were doing, but I'm proud of you anyway. I'm proud of you for buying the course, and hopefully you were able to follow along. Your homework is, don't think of it as that, but take what you learned today and start making some songs and saving them. And if you want, send them to me. I want to hear what you guys are creating. I know we just did loops today. We didn't play any instruments. I didn't use my MIDI controller, which is this thing here. I didn't do anything like that. I didn't pick up my guitar. I didn't sing into the mic or anything like that. I did sing into the mic, but just because I wanted to have fun. Next week, we're going to be covering that kind of cool stuff. And then we have 2 more weeks after that of like effects and virtual instruments, all kinds of cool things, mixing. And then I have this promotion at the very end on the last week that is one of my favorite lessons I ever did. On the last Masterclass when I did it, I'm like, man, if people just apply this, we're going to have like very prominent musicians popping up all over the place. So that's coming up next time. You can watch a previous week 4 if you want, a previous Masterclass week 4 if you want to see that. All right, well, thank you guys for hanging, for buying the course. I hope I helped you. Make some songs, get used to the program, and then next week we're going to get a little more advanced and do some really cool stuff. See you next time.